sort of in the middle, a little bit farther away. The name of our town was called Fonz. And if one of you would like to tell me what was the city like and how big was it?
It wasn't necessarily a city. It was just like a group of houses. It was very small. They had one basically main road that went into like the town square, and that's where you could get the Wi-Fi. And they had like a few stores there, and it's funny because they have one particular place that you could go to get your ration of rice and a bunch of other food. Of course, since we were a big group, they had to get food from the other town. So yeah, we ate a lot.
Sanika, could you tell me how was the government like in the city? Was it receptive to our presence or not?
We actually didn't end up having any problems with the government. I actually never saw anyone. So the government was great.
Yeah, and I actually had a personal experience. You could kind of tell government workers that had uniforms on. And one day we were out passing out glow tracts, and I literally walked up to a government person and gave them a glow tract, and they smiled and took it and walked away. So that's kind of, as she was saying, we had no problems whatsoever. So we were in this little town, little village, whatever you'd like to say. And as you may remember from the previous group, they don't really have church buildings per se. The way they have churches is they purchase a house, and a Bible worker family lives in there, and they have the church in the house. That's the way they get around the government's requirements for a church. So we were in the house church in Fonz. Nathan, why don't you share a little bit about who were the people we were with in the house? Who was with us there?
So in the house, it was pretty small. It had, I think, two bedrooms, sort of say. We were there with, we actually shared the entire house with actually 10 people, and it was the cooks. We had 2 cooks. We had administrator and his wife. We had our translator stayed in another house. It was packed with 1 bathroom. It was a cool experience because we got to actually become like one big family, sort of say, because we actually had to work together to solve problems in conserving water and whatever. So it was a fun experience because we actually were all living in the same house. We all stayed and ate together. It was just a really bonding experience, and we were able to connect with them better if we would have stayed in another house or some other place.
Yes, it was definitely a bonding experience. We got to know each other all very well. And so also this house, the house was too small to house the meetings and the children's meetings. So we came up with a solution. They sent a big tarp with us. And they set up the tarp in the backyard. They strung it to a variety of trees and poles and posts, and they made it work. And that was our meeting place for the adults. So Ariel, why don't you tell us a little bit about the adult meetings? How many people came? What was it like when you preached?
So there were quite a few adults. I would say maybe about like 20 or 30 adults came every night. They had laid out the pews out in a way, so like it was all wooden pews, and then they had like this really small like platform, and they had a podium like this up on front. Surprisingly, I thought that talking to the adults would be a lot harder because they're all serious. But I found it easier to talk because I didn't have to tell everyone to be quiet or to sit down. But whenever I talked, I felt like I could feel God speaking through me, because as I was looking at the people and I was talking, you could see on their faces like, wow, this is the message, like, and they're really sitting at the edge of their seats and looking at the screen and trying to understand. So, yeah.
Not only did we do preaching, we also utilized some of the material for the health talks, and we had short health presentations, whether it was through the video or towards the end. We actually had people getting up front sharing, and they had a few things they would do before the meeting. If there was a visitor there for the first time, we would ask them to come up, and they would receive a New Testament for their being there for the first time. And so every night we would go through those type of things. The children's meetings were probably one of the most exciting events there. Dee, why don't you tell us a little bit about the children's meetings? How many children came? What were they like? How was it like dealing with them?
Well, I didn't spend much time with the children, shouldn't have, but they were very wild and crazy, and we're just excited about God, so that's crazy. But anyways, there were like usually 30 to 40 people, and I would say at the most probably like 50, I don't know, 45. I just know that the church is like really packed with kids, and we would start off the service with just like greeting the kids, and we would have a message, like a short message, which was like 45 minutes long. And after that, before the message, we would have song service, and that's when the kids would get like really wild and they would start screaming and shouting, and it was just amazing. Anyways, after the song service, we had the message, and then after the message, we would have crafts and activities, and we would just play with the kids. And the kids really liked Nathan. Like, there were 2 boys who like cried because Nathan was about to leave, and so they're just like crying for him. They're like, no, God, please don't go. Like, Nathan was just, yeah, he was crying. Were you crying? No. He was crying inside.
But I was sad.
He was sad.
Now we had the meetings, both the children's and the adults meetings and the evening, which left the day free to do a variety of activities. And on some of the days, we didn't go out every day, but on some of the days we went out and did visitations. And the Bible worker there was actually a lady, and she was such a personality. She basically knew everyone in the town. Like, whenever we were walking with her, she was just like, hey, hello, this person, hi, this person, hello, this person, just walk right into their house, this, and we were like, okay, just following around, going with her. But how many of you remember a lady named Julia? Someone want to share about Julia?
So we went and visited this one girl. Her name was Julia. She was basically bedridden. She had pneumonia at the time that we were visiting her, and so she had a hard time breathing, and she couldn't really sit up fully, so they could only prop her up like halfway. But every time we visited her, she always had this bright smile for us, and it was just so touching because even though she was in bed and she was sick, you know, and you could tell sometimes when she talked, she would cough, you know. But every time we came to see her, she would always smile, and she would be so welcoming, and it was just amazing to see that kind of light despite the struggles that she was going through. And we were really blessed to visit her, and we even sang for her, and she seemed really blessed by that.
There was another young girl, I don't remember her name, maybe some of you do. She was studying, going to continue studying for baptism afterwards. But when we went to visit her, the Bible worker told us this girl is special because every time she comes to the meetings, she's not like the other girls. She doesn't laugh and goof off or whatever. She's always like listening every time at the meeting. And she wanted to get baptized. And so she wasn't able to get baptized at the end of the meeting. She wasn't quite ready yet. But she was continuing Bible studies after we left. It was just really neat to see someone so young. How old did you guys say she was? 12? 12, I think. Yeah. But she was just very, very serious about Jesus. And it was just so neat to see a young girl that age to be so interested in God and willing to, you know, nobody else in her family. And she was willing to study and go forward with Jesus. Any other stories you guys heard from visitations? Remember the old lady who at the end got baptized? That lady, yes, she was one of the sweetest old ladies. And we would go to her house, and she lived by herself, and her family just really wasn't in the area that I knew of. But she was wanting to get baptized, but she had it in the past. She had studies already, she had it in the past because they have limited meat options in Cuba, and pork is a huge meat that everyone eats. And her family was giving her a hassle about having to give up pork. And so she hadn't made the decision yet. But in the end, we spent one day where we prayed for certain people And she was one of the people that we prayed for. In the end, when we made the call for baptism, she was one of the people that finally decided to get baptized. In the end, when she was baptized, oh, you should have seen her. When she got into, we had a little swimming pool, and when she got into the pool, she was literally like waving her hands and like hallelujah. She was so happy and just cried. She was just so thrilled that she finally made that decision and got baptized. Okay, is that a story to share?
It does.
Tell us, Anika, tell us.
Okay. Okay, so there was, I can't remember his name, but there was a little boy who, so in the place where we were at, there was, we could walk a little bit, and we could,
His name was,
so there was a baseball field right next, it was, I don't know, maybe 100 feet away, but there was a baseball field, and a bunch of the boys and our administrator, he went to go play baseball, and all the boys, that was the hangout spot for all the young kids. And it was really neat, and I got to play some baseball. It was kind of fun. They taught me. Anyways, so one of the little boys, his mom was coming to the meetings, and he was coming to the meetings as well. And at the beginning of the first night, she was wearing the jewelry and, you know, traditional Cuban style. And so our administrators and whatnot started to talk with her and tell her more about jewelry and our meetings and whatnot. We're pointing to that about surrendering and whatnot. And toward the end, we kept praying for her. We visited her, I think, one time. And toward the end, it was neat to see how she was changing and God was moving. And I think we had one more night left. And then that night, she came to the meetings and she had no more jewelry. It was just a neat sacrifice. And it was something small. But it was just neat how she surrendered that. And at the very end, she also signed up for Bible studies to be baptized.
Amen.
So how many baptisms did we end up having?
4.
4. And you guys remember how many people continued? First?
It was a lot.
It was 10. 10 people that were asking to continue Bible studies. And so it was really neat to see that there were so many people that we prayed for the people that came forward to continue Bible studies. It was really neat to see that. Any of y'all want to share how you were personally blessed or the way you saw God working on this trip?
Yeah, so it was neat. For me, I remember one night it was a night and we were getting ready to go to sleep, and all of a sudden the translator was outside with, I can't remember who it was, but he was Ariel. And all of a sudden there was a guy and he was smoking and he was like kind of like looking at us in a way. It was kind of creepy. And so the translator was like, "What are you doing?" He asked, "Hey, come on over." And the guy was just crying. And so the translator was talking to him on what was going on, and it ended up that a close relative or his son was in the hospital and he was dying. And this man was so at the end of his rope that he just came, and it was neat it was neat because our meetings like started, there was word getting out, and so he knew that this was a place where he could get help. And so he came, and they ended up having a Bible study with him and actually helping him. And at the end, he was all happy, and it was really neat to see how, even though it was kind of, at the beginning we didn't know what was going on, God had a plan, and he was actually blessed in the end. It was really cool.
Amen.
I can share something. As part of the leadership for our site, I was worried about a lot of things. You know, when you're responsible for people and you're responsible for a lot of things. I was worried about, how are we going to get into the country and, make sure our visa's going to work, and anybody going to get in trouble, this kind of thing. I was worried about that. But God really showed me again, He's done this so many times. I don't know how many times I've taught me this lesson. It's not perfect, but you're trusting God, and He takes care of things. And He did that again for me this trip in so many ways. Like every time I worried about something, God just took care of it, and we literally had like no problems, at least for our side, our trip, and that was just a special lesson that God taught me, and that's how I really saw God.
So I have a little story. So we were doing the children's meetings and adult meetings, and we had finished doing the meetings, and we were just getting our stuff closed up, and we were getting everything packed away. And as we were, talking amongst ourselves, this little boy came up to us, and he was like, "Oh, I have some guavas. Do you want guavas?" And he seemed super sweet, and we were like, "Sure." And he's like, "You want 2 guavas?" And we're like, "Okay." And so we thought he was just going to bring us like 2 guavas. But the next night, he came back with his pockets bulging, and he had 2 guavas for each of us. And so he brings out these 2 guavas. He's like, "These are for you, for you, for you." And he gave each of us 2 guavas. And I was talking with my translator, and he said, "This boy is very special." And he told me that every night this boy would listen. Like, I could see every time we do the meetings, he would sit very attentively and he'd listen. Every time the kids would get loud, he'd be like, "Shh, shh, no, be quiet," because he wanted to listen. And in the middle of one of the meetings, I can remember he came up to the translator, like while we were doing the crafts, he came up to the translator and he asked me and the translator if we could pray for him. And I was curious because I didn't really understand what he was saying. And so our translator took him aside, and he prayed with him. And later I asked our translator, I was like, "What happened? Why did he ask for prayer?" And he's like, he wanted to ask for prayer for his cousin, or is it sister? His sister, because she was in the hospital and she had to go through a lot of pediatric things and whatnot. And so you could see the seriousness in his eyes about God and how much he wanted to learn about God. And it was amazing to see that kind of transformation through some of the kids, because sometimes kids are like, "Oh, whatever," and they just want to play and have fun. But some of these kids, they were really intent on learning about God and becoming part of the church. So that was really amazing, and I was really touched by that, because I was like, wow, even at this young of an age, kids can understand what we're saying and the message that we're speaking to them. So that was really beautiful. He was, I think, 8, 7? He was really little. He was like 7, I think.
Okay, so this is more a beauty story than mine. But we okay. Okay. But one day we were doing visitations, and it was near the end of our day, so we went to this. We passed by this one guy's house. He was kind of, I would say he's middle aged. You know who I'm talking about? Yeah, okay. All right. And so my translator basically explained to us that he had been struggling with some addictions that he had. And that, he had been to jail, something like that. Basically, he was struggling with some things in his life. And his family had abandoned him, and he had lost all his friends because everyone felt ashamed to sort of be associated with them. So the translator finished talking with them, and then we were going to go, but then, this is where we put this, she was like, "No, we need to go back and we need to pray with him." So we went back, and she was able to pray with him. And then I believe the next night, or maybe the night after, or maybe that night, that night, he actually came to the meetings that we had, and so it was a huge blessing to see how maybe something as small as us just praying for him was able to have an impact in his life.
So as you can tell, the Lord really blessed in our trip. There's a lot of neat experiences. And in closing, we wanted to share a little snippet of a song. And the reason we're sharing this song is this was the theme song of our site. They played it every single night. And basically the meaning of the song is it's one day closer than it was, talking about the second coming of Christ. And each day is one day closer than it was before. And so we're just going to play a short amount of this. It's Just so you kind of get an idea of what we experienced every night.
You have to see.
There's no sound.
I made a TV.
No, it was, the computer was muted, so it should work.
Alright, you get the next. Yes, they were special. You should have seen them singing this. Everyone, like, whenever this song played, like, everyone, like, really sang their hearts out. It really speaks to me. Their longing, for that day. Let's go. Father in heaven, Lord, we thank you so much for the opportunity that we had to share your gospel with people in a different country. And Lord, we realize that you are soon coming, and we have a huge work to do. There are so many more people in the world that still don't know about you. So Lord, I just pray that we would dedicate our lives and our energies to sharing the gospel with others. And we thank you for the small experience that we had. That it was inspiring to us that we saw you in so many different ways. Lord, please bless us today.